Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are at the start of 2038 spring training, and we're going to figure out over the next month or so exactly what we have with these Pirates. Did make one other minor trade since the last episode. Picked up, if I can find it here, Fernando Melo, a 38-year-old reliever who just happens to be very popular from the Phillies. They basically gave him to us for basically just a useless prospect, and they're keeping his salary. They just wanted him on the team, off the team. Clearly, he's not going to make the Phillies. I think it's unlikely in a normal situation that he would make the Pirates, but he did give us a 2-point bump in fan interest, and I'd like to have that fan interest, closer to 50 by the start of this season, so we've at least made a little progress there over the course of this offseason. You can see we are kind of projected to have a little more revenue per game now than we did last season. Would hope that if we're more successful on the field, that can be a bigger number going forward. The question of success on the field is obviously a good one. Star ratings are clearly just a very rough view of the player's ability. But as we begin spring training, and you can see we've got 22 pitchers in camp, only two, Omar Ganoa, former Kansas City Royal who we traded for this offseason, and Ernesto Moreno, 24-year-old former number one draft pick of the Pirates, who's a reliever, going to be our closer this year, are the only three-star players, according to our scout, in the pitching staff. And in the everyday lineup, there's also only a couple of them, and they're both players we picked up from the Royals, shortstop Tony Fonseca and right fielder Victor Avelar, among the 23 players that we have in camp. So not a ton of talent on this team. We may be able to get a little more over the next month before the season starts. We do have a trade offer out to another extremely popular player, catcher Drew Romo. So perhaps we will get him in camp shortly. Would be nice to get a boost from having him on board. You can see we offered him $2.5 million over a year. And then we've also made a number of minor league contract offers today to a number of players just to kind of bolster our minor league system, because we are going to need some players to fill out those teams, because we've moved on from a lot of players already over the past couple months of running the Pirates. And we want to bring on some players who have some talent, or more importantly, if they're free agents at this point, just have good personalities and will be a good influence on the development of those around them. And Drew Romo's come back, says he's looking for more money. We had offered him $2.5 million. He says he wants $2.56 million. Actually, I guess he's saying they've offered him $2.56. He says he wants $2.8. We'll offer him $2.8. Have a feeling he's just going to end up going and signing with Milwaukee, because he wants to avoid having the final years of his career associated with this dumpster fire, or perceived dumpster fire, that is the Pittsburgh Pirates. But we're going to turn this dumpster fire around. I have no doubt about it. And it's starting to seem that Drew Romo definitely does not want to play for us. He says he's still getting a better offer out of Milwaukee, looking for $3.2 million now. As much as we would love to bring him on board, given his popularity, I just don't think it makes sense. We've got the money to have him on board, but we've also already got Aguiar and Fuchs, who are going to be our catchers, along with John Herrera, a prospect we picked up in the Rule 5 draft, and then Juan Sanchez, who's just a guy who's been in the organization for a little over a year now. Would certainly, given Romo's defensive abilities, make room for him over any and all of those players. I'm going to give him one last chance, actually, because We really need the boost in fan interest. We're going to actually give him exactly what he's looking for, or what he claims he's looking for. And if he doesn't go for that, we know that he's just playing us. As expected, Romo has come back looking for more money, saying that Milwaukee is where he's really interested in going. Also, supposedly the Diamondbacks have interest in him now. So we are going to move on. We're basically just looking for the popularity bump. We're not going to chase it like crazy. We'll find someone else. Jose Guzman, starting pitcher, right-hander, fragile, looking for $2.4 million, but he's very popular. Could certainly use him at the back end of our rotation. Again, it's really more about just coming up with a body at this point. I guess if we want quality, there's Jonathan Velasquez. He's looking for $10.6 million, but he hasn't gotten an offer yet. He's extremely popular. Could offer him every penny that we have. And he claims to want over 20.8. He claims to want over 20 million, almost 21 million to join the Pirates, even though supposedly his contract demand was 10.6 million. So nobody wants to play in Pittsburgh. So we'll take a look at Guzman now. Everyone wants way over what they're allegedly looking for. He's looking for 3.44 million rather than the 2.4 that it says his contract demand is to come to Pittsburgh. So he may have to go back towards the trade market to see if we can come up with another popular player. But I think we'll just let things simmer for a while. We may hear from Mr. Romo again, although hopefully for his sake he will get an offer from one of those other teams that he's really looking to sign with. And Romo wasn't bluffing. He did sign with Milwaukee, and he actually signed for almost $3.3 million, so maybe he didn't hate us. He just was signing in a better situation for about the same money. Elijah Corsi, first guy on the team to the IL. He is definitely a borderline candidate to make this roster. He is popular, which helps him. 26-year-old. I would think he probably will end up making the roster, the 26-man, but he also is out for 4 weeks with this sore shoulder, so if he doesn't heal up very quickly from it, probably will begin the season on the IL. And I think we have found another trade to get us a popular player. Tony Owens from the Tampa Bay Rays. It's his 33rd birthday today. Probably going to be disappointed when he finds out he's going to join the Pirates. But a great personality, fan favorite, extremely popular, durable pitcher. He is a replacement level pitcher in my view. He can start, which is convenient. But in parts of 3 major league seasons with Boston and the Rays, he's been a bit below average in terms of his ERA plus and FIP minus. A little bit over replacement level in terms of his WAR, though. Generally, they're looking for better players for him, but one person that they will accept is 39-year-old catcher Carter Binns, who we just signed to be organizational depth not too long ago. And Binns is not nearly as popular as Owens is, so Binns was probably going to be a AAA catcher for us. Would have loved him to be there with his experience and his personality and his above-average defense to have helped mentor some of the prospects in our system. But I think we're better off bringing Owens on board, so we're going to go ahead and complete this trade. Fans are happy that we brought him on board. And that gives us a bump up to 47 in fan interest. So we're making progress little by little, adding a bunch of arms to the back end of our bullpen, who hopefully won't hurt us too much on the field. and maybe will help us sell a few more tickets this year. And another week, another injury for the Pirates. This one a little more serious. Heriberto Rosales, 24-year-old starting pitcher, has been up for 2 years. You can see he went 4-13 and then 6-14. But certainly has the profile that he could be a useful major league arm. Unfortunately, he's out with a strained shoulder for the next 5 weeks. So we'll certainly not be ready for the start of the season. We will have him join Corsi on the IL at this point. That'll also open up a spot in our 6-man spring training rotation. So Jose Jernigan will get a little action as a starting pitcher there. Probably will not be in the rotation when the season actually starts, but otherwise not too many injuries so far. Looking at the lineups, nobody's really banged up at all. Got a lot of extra players in camp. We'll see what kind of materializes over the next couple of weeks before the regular season starts. Still would like to make one more move potentially to bring on some salary and bring on a player who's popular. At this point, we've definitely focused on bringing on some relievers for our bullpen. So I think more if there's a backup infielder or a backup outfielder with a little popularity who we can pick up for not too much money and not too much in terms of what we need to give up, that may be the option for us to look at this point. And we've kind of searched for extremely popular players and very popular players, and also taken a look at the trade market, looking at the same, and there's just not much of anything out there in position players. Definitely our pitchers who we can try to bring on, but we've already kind of hammered that part of the trade at this point. We brought on 3 pitchers who are relatively popular to get us the boost from 41 up to 47 in fan interest. At this point, I think we may just head into the regular season with some money to potentially spend. And then it's extremely unlikely that we will be looking to make a push for the playoffs when we get to the trade deadline. But it is still possible that there may be teams looking to dump salary, and there may be some popular players on the market. And assuming they're not 10-5 guys, and assuming that they don't have no trade clauses, maybe we can add someone to give us a little boost in popularity come July, August, and continue to put some people into the seats in Pittsburgh, even if we're 20 games out of first place by that time. And here on March 14th, another big injury to our pitching staff. Omar Lopez, who you may remember, picked up in the trade with Detroit. Extremely popular player who gave us a nice boost to popularity. Is going to be gone for 4 months. We are going to put him on the IL. Maybe we'll move him to the 60 eventually, but right now just put him on the 15-day. We'll see what happens. We've got, I think about a week and a half left of spring training. Yeah, just over a week of spring training left. Pirates 8-13 in spring training, so certainly not playing incredibly well. Chris Gomez, potential first baseman or third baseman, hitting well. Victor Avellar, our cleanup hitter, knocking some home runs. And then Edgar Flores, who is one of the decent young starters in our system, has 18 strikeouts. So a few players having nice springs. We'll see how this next week or so goes, and then we'll start trying to make some final cuts to figure out what this 26-man roster is actually going to look like and what type of season we might have ahead of us. I think we can get to the high 60s, around 70 wins, so coming off of a 55-win team, I think we can potentially gain 10 to 15 wins compared to last year, which I think would be pretty good progress. given that our player payroll is so far behind anyone else in baseball at this point. But Nutting wants us to play close to 500 balls, so I don't think we are. I don't think we are there yet. I mean, you just look at our payroll, you look at our salaries, and we now have, potentially 6 players on the 26-man roster who aren't making the major league minimum. Some of these are young guys with a lot of potential, but some of them are players who should be making the major league minimum, and unfortunately, I think a lot of them fit that profile. But at least we are young, and hopefully we will be getting better. And spring training now over for the Pirates. Finished with a record of 10-17, so it was not the worst record in baseball, which I guess is something. Small steps forward. Granted, there's spring training games that don't really matter, but we'll take what we can get. 43 players on the roster right now, kept pretty much everybody up through spring training, and now we begin the process of making our final cuts to see what this 26-man roster is going to look like as we try to see if we can improve from being the worst team in baseball last season to not being the worst team in baseball here in 2038. Well, we've made the relatively easy cuts down to 16 players, position players, so we need to cut 3 more. Catcher have been going back and forth. You may remember in the Rule 5 draft, we pick up John Herrera, 23-year-old. Great personality. Profiles as an average-ish offensive player. He's durable. But he's average defensively as a catcher, but he is young. I look at Leo Aguilar. Aguilar's also durable. Aguilar's kind of the bat that we think Herrera can become. But he's 7 years older. He's better defensively, although he doesn't have as good an arm. So there's been part of me thinking you keep Herrera and we look to trade Aguilar because he's out of options. And then Adam Fuchs, who our manager wants to be our starter. Good personality, solid defensively, good arm. Not much of an offensive player, but he's held his own at the major league level. He does have an option year left, so we could send him down. But he's the best catcher we've got, so that doesn't make sense. I think if Herrera was a little bit better of a prospect, if his defense was just plus potential defense, or if his bat was somewhere where you made it think that it was going to be a plus potential bat, it would make sense to keep him. But Aguilar's better than him right now, better defensively, and we're trying to kind of turn things around in Pittsburgh. So we are unfortunately going to send Herrera back from whence he came to the Tigers. So one Rule 5 guy gone. You may remember we picked 5 in the draft last December. Still have 2 more cuts to make on the major league team at this point as far as our position players. Victor Gomez is a player who we think is a really interesting bat. Now, he's a DH. He's not even a first baseman. He can't play the outfield. But he's durable, potentially plus bat. He was a Rule 5 guy that we picked up from the Royals, and he is definitely going to make the roster. That bat is, I guess sadly for the Pirates, unlike anything that we have at the major league level. He's going to strike out a ton, and he's not going to walk all that much. But he did hit .301 with 21 homers in high A ball. And we're going to see what he can do at the major league level. We don't have many bats like that in our system, period, and certainly at the major league team. So we'll hope that our scouting on him is correct, and he can plug in as a potential DH for us. And even with a team like the Pirates, it eventually becomes a numbers game. Giacinto Marinetti has an interesting-looking bat. and he hit 306 with 22 homers and 78 ribbies in AAA last year in the Atlanta system. But he did hit just a .143 when he was up for 21 at-bats. He's not going to be starting for us at the major league level. He's got one option year left. So for the time being, we're going to send Mr. Marinetti down to Indianapolis. And that leaves us with one more decision to make. And the last cut is not going to make our manager healthy or our manager happy, because we're going to send down the guy that he wants to be his starting second baseman against right-handed pitchers, Bill Aguayo. Really nice defensive player, nice personality. He's just not a major league hitter. And in his limited time in Pittsburgh, he's kind of proven that with a 29 OPS plus and a 29 WRC plus over the course of 226 at-bats. So we're going to send Aguayo down to AAA because he also has one option year left. And that gives us 13 position players. Now we've got to get down from 16 pitchers to 13 pitchers. And looking at this pitching staff, definitely different than the pitching staffs we had built in Kansas City over the years. You look, we got a lot of people with not very good control fighting for the major league spot, and even a few guys without very good movement. First cut is going to be Jordan Ariza. This is a guy we picked up in a trade with the Royals when we started this playthrough. Just turned 25 a few days ago. He's got 3 option years left. Last year in Omaha, came up and was respectable with a 3.71 ERA over 17 innings after beginning the year in Double-A. May have a role on the team going forward, but his control is as bad as anyone, and his movement is not exceptional. He's kind of a generic right-handed arm out of the bullpen. He's not particularly popular, so he's headed down to AAA. Next cut, also not that hard. Jordan Herrera, picked up by the Pirates organization in a trade with Atlanta almost 2 years ago. Spent last year in Double-A. Profiles as a very replacement-ish level arm. So easy to send him down for more seasoning. We're going to put him in Altoona for the moment. When we go through and review our whole minor league system, there is potential he'll end up at AAA for the beginning of the year. And the final cut, going to be another guy that we picked up in a trade with the Royals, Alex Simmons, who actually pitched pretty well at the end of last year with Kansas City. According to our scout, he's not as good as we thought he was. OSA, a little more optimistic about him. But he's got 2 option years left. So he's going to face the fact that he did not make the Pirates roster coming out of spring training. And that means that we now have figured out the 26-man roster that manager Tony Thomas is going to be making his major league managerial debut with in just a few days. And we will have more decisions to make in the coming weeks when Heriberto Rosales, Elijah Corsi, and Omar Lopez, hopefully the next few weeks with Rosales and Corsi, and then Lopez before the end of the year, potentially have to come off of the injured list. But right now, we have the 26-man roster that the Pirates are going to try to improve upon their 55-win season from last year with. So who made the team? Looking at the pitching staff, not a ton of surprises among the rotation. This was an area that we felt decent about when we took over the Pirates, or I guess more accurately, better about than any other part of the team. Young, and there's some potential here. Ricky Gotti, 25-year-old, led the National League, and I'm assuming the majors, with 18 losses last year when he first became a starter at the major league level. But certainly has the profile to be a solid major league pitcher. He's our number one guy right now. Tony Santana, 23-year-old, got called up at the end of last year where he was 7-10 with a 4.03 ERA. Marco Estrada, the left-hander that we picked up from Kansas City, former number one draft pick of the Royals. He's our number 3 starter. Edgar Flores, another youngster, 24 years old, 7-12 last year with a league worst 95 walks and a 4.86 ERA. Has the profile, other than the walks, of potentially being able to be a respectable major league pitcher. And then Tony Santana, the number 5 spot. Or actually, I already talked about Santana, didn't I? Sorry, Ernesto Moreno is the number 5 spot. He was going to be our closer, and with some of the injuries, it looks like the manager wants to move him in the rotation. But with the fact that third pitch, that changeup, is just not very good, I think I may overrule Manager Thomas, and we are going to force him back into the closer role. And that means that Jorge Melendez will now be our number 5 starter. Melendez, good personality, popular player, but certainly profiles as a replacement level at best starter at the major league level. And certainly I would expect whenever we have the opportunity to potentially add Rosales back into the bullpen or back into the rotation in a few weeks, that Melendez will be moving back to the bullpen. So that is our starting rotation. Feel like there's potential with the top 4 to be decent major league pitchers. They're all in their early to mid-20s. Even Melendez is young, but I don't see him being a long-time option for us in the starting rotation if we're going to be a good team. Moreno, who we just mentioned, our closer, just don't see a reason to start somebody with a third pitch that's that mediocre. Andy Ochoa, rookie last year, hopefully will become a decent arm out of the bullpen for us. David Villalobos, who we picked up in the Rule 5 draft from the Royals, the first of our Rule 5 acquisitions to make the team officially, although, as you know, we already talked about a position player who was going to do it also, but has brilliant stuff. Just a matter of can he keep it in the park and can he avoid walking the bases. But we'll see what he can do at the major league level. Omar Ganoa, left-hander that we picked up in a trade with the Royals, as theme that you've heard quite frequently, should be a decent lefty arm out of the pen. Wille Arenales, Rule 5 acquisition from the Royals, second pitcher out of the Rule 5 draft who's going to make the team, has never pitched at the major league level before. Did put up a 3.65 ERA in 12 1/3 innings, and given that he's a Rule 5 guy, we've got to keep him up to maintain his rights. Livio Lantara, picked up in a trade with Detroit, kind of a replacement level arm with a good personality, pitching middle relief, long relief for us. Tony Owens, who we picked up in that trade with Tampa Bay, an extremely popular player, fan favorite, another back end of the bullpen arm. And Fernando Melo, lefty specialist, another very popular player that we picked up in that trade with the Phillies, will round out the bullpen for us. Turning to our position players, Fuchs and Aguiar, both guys that we brought over from the Kansas City system, had both been backup catchers for the Royals for periods of time over the last 5 or 6 seasons, are our 2 catchers on this team. Starting first baseman is going to be Chris Gomez. Profiles as an average-ish major league bat, decent glove for a first baseman and does have the versatility to play the corner infield and corner outfield spots. Hit .214 for the Pirates last year, but did have 26 homers and 72 ribbies. Hopefully can be a little more productive this year. The BABIP last year was .264. If he can get that up a little bit, maybe he'll be a little more of a productive offensive player. Second baseman is going to be Tony Cook. Rule 5 acquisition from Boston. Brought him on board thinking that he might be a backup player, but we liked his bat better than Pacina. Pretty versatile defensively, good personality. Has never played in the majors before. Hit only a .199 in 206 at-bats with Worcester last year. We're going to give him a shot at the major league level. So there's a third Rule 5 guy made the team. Third baseman, Rich Salone. Picked him up in a trade with Colorado. Profiles as a very average-ish bat. Not the best defensive third baseman in the world, although he does have a gun for an arm. We'll see what he can do. And then starting shortstop is going to be Tony Fonseca. Picked him up in the trade with Kansas City. Decent bat, but excellent defensively. Iron Man injury proneness hopefully can anchor our infield defense. Jose Bernal, picked up in a trade with the Phillies. It's going to be a backup first baseman for us. Has never played at the major league level before now. And then David Gallegos, who we picked up in a trade with who else? The Kansas City Royals. It's going to be our utility infielder. Hit .235 in Omaha last year. Does have a little bit of major league experience with the Brewers from back in 2036. But he's going to be the utility infielder for these Royals. And our starting designated hitter is going to be Victor Gomez. Rule 5 acquisition. We talked about him earlier. So 4 of the Rule 5 acquisitions that the Pirates made are making the Major League roster. He is just a pure bat, but as you've been looking at the rest of these players, we don't have a lot of bats on the team. So we are going to see if Gomez can make the leap from high A ball to the major leagues at the age of 24. Turning to the outfielders, Arturo Rivas, going to be our starting left fielder. Got some pop, hit 30 homers, drove in 90 for the Pirates last year, hit just .240. Struck out 147 times in 437 at-bats. Not the best contact hitter in the world. Hopefully he gets lucky and lucks into another 25 or 30 home runs with that big swing of his. Jordan Owens is going to be our center fielder. Not the greatest defensive center fielder in the world, but he is durable. Has a potentially acceptable bat. He's done a decent job at the major league level, 91 OPS plus, 95 WRC plus. And he's got the range and the error rating to be an acceptable defensive center fielder for us. So we don't have a lot of depth behind him in the outfield, particularly at that center field spot. But he's the one who's going to be manning it on a regular basis to start. And then Victor Avelar, who as you can see is our 5th batter against righties and our 3rd batter against lefties. Right fielder, player that Kansas City was looking to move on from in his arbitration years, and potentially going to be making 18.4 in arbitration next season. So very unlikely that he will be back with Pittsburgh, but he at least gives us a proven major league bat for the middle of our lineup. You look at what he's done over the course of his career. He was a Rookie of the Year in 2034, was an All-Star last season, and he's hit over 30 home runs in 3 of his 4 major league seasons, over 100 ribbies twice, 125 OPS plus, 124 WRC plus. Gives these Pirates a legitimate major league bat in the middle of their lineup that they just didn't have otherwise, even if it ends up being a 1-year rental. I think he's a good player to have on board, and he's also a fan favorite who's popular, and locally he's extremely popular. So he did help give us a nice boost, put hopefully a few more fans in the stadium. And backup outfielder is Jose Perez. Picked him up in a trade with Baltimore. Again, when we started this playthrough a couple episodes ago. He can play left, he can play right, he can back us up at first base. Question how much he's really going to hit at the major league level. We'll see what he can do. There's very few people on this team that we won't have a problem moving on from if they get off to a slow start. I mean, I'd say that Aviar and right, Fonseca at short, Rule 5 Guy Gomez with his bat, and Adam Fuchs behind the plate are probably the ones who you can count on being out there most days for the next 6 months, unless they have some injuries. And we'll see what happens with everybody else. It's going to be a very interesting season to see how much we can improve Pittsburgh coming off of the 55-win season they had last year. I don't love the roster. I think it's nuts that we're going into the 2038 season with a payroll of only $30 million. As I mentioned, we've got money to take on free agents. In retrospect, would have loved to have put a little more into scouting and development, but you can see we've more than doubled those from last year, and in the case of scouting, more than tripled it. So we are trying to make investments in this team's future. We'll see what happens on the diamond at the major league level this year, though. And what was in most of the 16 seasons we played with the Royals a fun thing to do at the end of spring training, maybe a little scary when we do it with these Pirates, but let's take a look here on March 22nd at what the preseason predictions look like. Obviously, we've still got 3 more days till opening day, so rosters will change from other teams, and we'll run another preseason prediction at the start of our next episode. As I said, I think this team can be a 65 to 70 win team. Let's see how far off I am. The Royals, despite all the players they've traded away, most, I am sure, of the players they traded away ended up in Pittsburgh. Still looking like a 100-win team in the American League. Worst team in baseball in the American League, at least, is the 64-win White Sox. What do we think these Pirates are going to look like? Hey, they don't think we're going to be in last place. They think we might be 75 and 87. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I would sign up for that right now. If we can make a 20-game improvement, doesn't look like any of the Pirates players are going to be among the top hitters in this simulation we just ran, but do have Flores, the 24-year-old, who 12-12 with a 3.62 ERA, 258 strikeouts, and 203 2/3 innings pitched. Did walk a lot of batters. He doesn't have great control, though, but if he's able to put up a season like that, that would be a good step in the right direction. So the initial simulation says we probably won't be the worst team in baseball this coming season, although even with those 75 wins, we're really only ahead of the Cubs, the Nationals, the Astros, White Sox, Guardians, and Rays. All right, so there are a lot of teams with 75 wins, the Angels, and then you can see in the NL, us, the Brewers, Dodgers, 75 wins for the Dodgers. Come on. That's embarrassing, Los Angeles. Still got a $380 million budget. For some reason, you're only spending $186 million of it, so you've got tons of money for free agents. But the Dodgers is a potential 75-win last-place team, tied with the $30 million payroll that we're going to have on the Pirates. That would be a huge embarrassment. I can't imagine that that's going to happen, but we'll find out. But if we make a 20-game improvement from 55 wins to 75 wins with these Pirates, I would view that as a very successful season. I don't know what Bob Nutting's going to think. He wants us to get close to 500 ball. I wouldn't say that 75 and 87 is close. Probably got to get more to 77, 78 wins to be considered close to 500. But a 20-game improvement would be the best winning percentage for this team since 2032. So if we can pull that off, that would be a big step in the right direction. And we will find out exactly what these Pittsburgh Pirates can do in our next episode when we start off the 2038 season, our first season as general manager of the club. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.